Good day, students, and welcome back to the wonderful world of writing. This video is going to give you a brief explanation on how to cite your sources. And this is not about creating a works cited page. This is about internal citation. How do you properly quote researched material into your essay or into your research paper? All right, so there's three things. It's kind of like a sandwich, right? Two pieces of bread and something in the middle. There's three ingredients you have to remember to make sure you have properly cited and included your research or your sources in your paper. One, always introduce your quote. What does that mean? Well, if you go to a party and you don't know anyone, you're going to have to introduce yourself to people. Or if you go with a friend and they know everyone and you know no one, you expect your friend to introduce you to other people. So introduce the source. Let your audience know who you're going to be quoting. Let your audience know where the material is coming from. This is extremely important. So for example, if it's Dr. Smith, right? Maybe he's an oncologist specialist. Make sure in your introduction, before you stick in your quote, you identify Dr. Smith as the oncologist specialist. All right, are you going to be introducing a quote from Dr. Smith, some of his research? What is it that you're going to do? So then you need to do this, right? In his article, Dr. Smith, and I'll just make it short here, Dr. Smith reports, right? And then, of course, you would stick in your quote there. But make sure you introduce your source material first. And I'll show you a better example in an actual essay after this. So let's clear that. Number two, you need to properly place your quote. That means you need to make sure that you are using your quotation marks in the right place and in the right format. And that if you are using MLA citation, at the end of the quote, you properly cite what page or what website you have that quote on. So again, we'll go through it with an actual essay in a few minutes here. The third thing that you need to do is you need to justify the quote. Why is that quote important to the reader? Why is it important to your essay? Why is it important to your ideas? All right, so let's go over it one more time. One, you need to introduce your quote. You go into a party, introduce the person you're quoting. Two, you need to properly place that quote. And number three, you need to justify or explain the importance of that quote. And this is what we call the quote sandwich, right? How to properly cite your sources. All right, so let me close that up. We don't need that anymore. Let me go to a screen that I do need to share. Give me 1 second, please. Okay, all right. So what I'm going to bring up here is an actual essay written by a student. Let me make sure that I've got it on the right page here so that we can all see it. I'm going to stop share for a second and start a new share. Oh, the wonders. The wonders of Zoom. All right. Okay, so what I have here is an essay written by a student called Maybe It's Maybelline, Maybe It's Photoshop. If you have your textbook, Compose, Gearing Up for Writing in the 21st Century, that's going to appear on page 84, right? Chapter 5, page 84. All right, so let's take a look at how Myra Torres properly places her quote. She starts her essay out, wham, bam, right with a right with the quote. So please pay attention to how she introduces the quote, how she places the quote, and how she justifies the quote. All right, so first she introduces the quote. The American playwright and activist Eve Ensler. All right, awesome. We now know who Eve Ensler is. She's a playwright and an activist. Once said, comma, open quote, there's this tyranny that's not accidental, dot, dot, dot. This means Myra took something out of the quote, which makes women feel compelled to look like somebody they're not, period, end quote, close quotes. All right, so now she has placed the quote in proper format. So notice how her cited material appears in quotation marks. Then she justifies her quote. She explains her quote, right? Ensler is referring to the mainstream advertisements seen in the media. So here she is justifying her quote. She wants the readers to understand what's going on and why this quote is important and how this quote should be understood in the context of her writing. So what does she do? She introduces the quote, she places the quote, she justifies the quote. All right, so let's scroll down here a little bit more. You can see she does a lot of internal citations. We're focusing on the yellow part. The writer of the documentary America the Beautiful, Daryl Roberts, was also fascinated with America's obsession with beauty. Myra Torres is introducing the source of her quote. Writer of the documentary, Daryl Roberts. What's his documentary? America the Beautiful. He realized that, open quote, women have a love-hate relationship with beauty magazines, period, end quote. So she properly places the quote. He also found that 70% of all women that spend 3 minutes reading a fashion magazine feel shameful, fat, or guilty. She's double quoting him. She's using two quotes from him, from his documentary, and she properly places that. And you'll see at the end here, she puts the author's, the source's name, Roberts, so we know that this is what Roberts said in close parentheses. All right. By living in the United States, one is bombarded by ads everywhere they go. She's justifying her quote. She's reinforcing the idea she's trying to get across to us. So let's look at it as a whole. The writer of the documentary America the Beautiful, Daryl Roberts, was also fascinated with America's obsession with beauty. He realized that, open quote, women have a love-hate relationship with beauty magazines, period, close quotes. He also found that, open quote, 70% of all women that spend 3 minutes reading a fashion magazine feel shameful, fat, or guilty, close quote, open parentheses, Roberts, close parentheses, period. All right, and then right underneath, she uses another quote in green. The filmmaker, comma, Gene Kilborn, recently came to the conclusion that, open quote, the average American is exposed to 3,000 advertisements every day, close quotes, open parentheses, Kilborn, close parentheses, period. So we know this is Kilborn's words, not somebody quoting her, but these are her actual words. Okay, let's go down here and look at the other citations she places. In his documentary, Daryl Roberts mentions catching the media red-handed. He discovered a sociologist from Harvard, Dr. Ann Becker, who did a study about exposing television to Fiji. After 3 years, the experiment showed that eating disorders had shockingly increased from 0% to 11%. Notice how she doesn't put 0% to 11% in quotation marks. She does not need to do that because she's already told you what her source was, right? And the source is Dr. Ann Becker, who's a sociologist from Harvard. So please really pay attention to how Myra doesn't just drop quotes, just bam, throws them in there, but she takes the time to let the reader know who the source is, what their expertise is, and then of course the material that she's using for them. Very, very important. Introduce the source of the quote, provide the information, then justify why that information is important to your idea. All right, I'm not going to go through this entire thing because you can certainly do it on your own. Again, this is on chapter 5, page 84. Oops, I made it very, very tiny there to give you an idea, right? That's how many citations that she uses. right? The big ones, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. Um, and she's making sure to properly cite every single source that she does within the body and development of her essay. Now, on the bottom here at the end paragraph, she does something very interesting when she's citing, right? In the year 2007, Dove launched their Real Beauty campaign promoting natural true beauty. They released a video commercial called Dove Evolution. In this commercial, the audience is exposed to what really happens to a model before the final billboard photograph is published. The video exhibits the various stages of making this plain Jane looking model into a flawless goddess. The process goes from doing the model's makeup to her hair, to more makeup, then to extensive photo editing until it finally gets plastered on the billboard. Open parentheses, www.youtube.com, close parentheses, period. This is called paraphrasing. So Myra has decided to use a video as one of her sources. And obviously, when you're reading an essay, you can't watch the video. But what she's doing is she's paraphrasing or she's summarizing what happens in the video, right? So it's a video produced by Dove Evolution in 2007. And what the video shows us is how you take this plain Jane model, right? Do her makeup, do her hair, and do photo editing, and she looks like a goddess. And then she tells us where the source is, right? That she got that source on YouTube. So this is another way to cite material that's like long, right? That's lengthy. And this video is about 2 minutes long, and she can't do a minute by minute sort of explanation of what it is. So she summarizes the source or she paraphrases it, but she's still sure to make sure she cites it properly. It's a YouTube video. It's from Dove Evolution. It was made in 2007. Alrighty, so that's about it for properly citing your sources internally, like within the essay. It's always good to go look at research papers and essays to see how the form is used, right, for citing sources within your essay. It's the best way to do it. We don't always read just for entertainment or for information. Sometimes it's also good to look at somebody else's essay as a piece of writing and to look at the elements of that piece of writing and how that writer successfully completed those elements. In this case, the element is properly internally citing your sources within your essay. Also, at the end of her essay, you'll see she has a works cited page and it shows you the correct format. I learn a lot by looking at examples, by looking at models. So when you have the time, please go to Compose, Gearing Up for Writing in the 21st Century. Look at Myra Torres's essay and pay attention to how she cites her sources and how she comprises or composes her works cited page. Alrighty, have a good day, and I will see you next time. Thank you very much.